Near a shallow depression in the dry earth, a lone elephant cow moved with slow, deliberate steps. Her swollen belly strained with each stride, the heaviness of new life making her pace uneven. The flick of her ears and the restless shift of her trunk betrayed her unease, that she could hear them before she could see them. From the shadowed edges of the grassland, shapes began to emerge, moving with the calculated rhythm of predators who knew the advantage of patience. Hyenas, not the scavengers of myth, but skilled hunters. When the odds tilted in their favor, their eyes caught the moonlight in fleeting glints, and their paws moved soundlessly over the brittle earth. They fanned out in an arc, closing the distance not with haste, but with a quiet inevitability. For the elephant, there would be no herd. To protect herself, she had wandered too far from the safety of numbers. Her trunk curled briefly, testing the air, as if she could smell their intention. A low rumble trembled through her body, but it was more for herself than for them a reminder to stand her ground. Yet the hyenas did not rush. They circled, reading her movements, watching the subtle stagger when she shifted her weight. Each one knew she carried something more than just herself. In the wild, such a burden could turn strength into vulnerability. The leader, a scarred female with a torn ear, stepped forward, her head held low, shoulders rippling with silent power. She stopped just within striking distance, gauging the reach of that great trunk and the arc of those ivory tusks. Behind her, others flanked outward, their shapes weaving between the tall grass, appearing and vanishing like shadows in water. The elephant pivoted, her massive frame swinging with surprising speed for her condition, tusks catching the glint of moonlight. For a moment, the line held predator and prey suspended in a fragile standoff. Then the first lunge came. Not from the front, but from her right. A blur of mottled fur and snapping jaws darted in, testing the perimeter. Her trunk whipped down, like a striking branch, catching the hyena across the shoulder. A yelp broke the stillness, but it was quickly swallowed by the night. Another shape darted in from the opposite side, feinting, drawing her attention away from the leader, who edged closer still. The elephant's breathing grew harsh, steam rising from her in the cool night. She swung again, tusks slicing the air, but every movement seemed to cost her more strength. The pack pressed tighter now, their circle constricting, their tactics honed through countless hunts. The torn-eared leader stepped forward in a slow, deliberate gait, her eyes fixed not on the elephant's face, but on her flanks, the place where muscle was thick, but reach was thin. She knew time favored her kind. The longer the elephant turned and spun, the more the weight of her unborn calf would drag her down. Then came a sudden crack of breaking grass from behind her, and for the first time, the elephant hesitated. She turned sharply, ears wide, searching the darkness. Something was moving there. Not another hyena, but heavier. The earth itself trembled faintly with each step. The hyenas froze, caught between instinct and calculation. The leader flicked her ears, reassessing. The elephant's posture shifted, her trunk lifted high, and she released a low, resonant call, not the panic trumpet of fear, but a deep, summoning note that seemed to reach beyond the open plain. It hung in the air like an unspoken promise. From the darkness, the faint outline of massive forms began to take shape, moving with steady, unstoppable purpose. The hyena's circle faltered, but they did not scatter, not yet. The torn-eared leader's gaze flicked between the encroaching shapes and the vulnerable prize before her. For a heartbeat, the world held still, the elephant breathing heavily. The hyenas poised in tense silence. The newcomers drew nearer with each rumbling step. And then, somewhere in the quiet between predator and prey, something shifted. 3 elephants emerged from the dark, their bodies catching the moonlight in pale arcs. They were older cows, broad in battle, their tusks chipped from years of defending calves against lions and drought alike. They advanced without haste, but with a weight of presence that seemed to alter the very air. Even the hyenas, so skilled at reading opportunity, paused at the arrival of this new force. The pregnant cow stood motionless, flanks heaving, her ears slightly forward, but not yet fully relaxed. Her deep summoning note had reached them, and now the herd's matriarch, an immense, one-eyed elephant whose remaining eye glowed amber in the moon light, moved into place at her side. She did not touch her, but her presence alone was a wall. The hyenas read the language of posture. They understood their quarry was no longer alone, yet they did not retreat. Hunger, sharpened by many lean nights, can make even the boldest risks seem worth taking. The matriarch swung her head slowly toward them, her single eye scanning the pack with the predator's calm. She stepped forward just enough to test their nerve. A ripple passed through the hyena's small shifts of weight, tails lowering slightly, but the torn-eared leader held her ground. Her gaze stayed fixed on the pregnant cow, knowing the others had come too late to erase the scent of weakness that hung in the air. A thin wind moved across the plain, carrying with it the smell of dust and the faint rust of old blood. Somewhere, far off, a nightjar called a sound so delicate it almost vanished before it reached them. The matriarch's ears rotated, measuring the distance, calculating the risk of another predator drawn to the scene. She moved closer to the pregnant cow, her massive shoulder brushing lightly against hers in a gesture that was both reassurance and command. The hyenas began their slow arc again, spreading outward, their paws soundless on the earth. They were no longer aiming for a direct rush, they were testing the edges, probing for the smallest lapse in the herd's formation. The matriarch shifted again, her trunk curling toward the ground, sweeping the dust in slow, deliberate motions. She was not bluffing. If they pushed too far, she would strike, and her kind were known to kill when the balance tipped. But the night was long, and the predators were patient. For a moment, the pregnant cow's head lowered, her trunk brushing against the matriarch's foreleg. She was tired, more tired than she wanted to admit, her legs trembling from the strain of standing her ground for so long. The calf inside her pressed outward, a restless movement beneath her ribs, as if sensing the danger beyond the veil of its mother's body. Her breath came in long, controlled pulls, but the energy it cost her was evident. The hyenas sensed it, too. Two younger ones darted in from the flanks, quick and low, snapping at the edges of the formation. The matriarch lunged, her tusk striking the air with a force that sent dust spiraling upward, but the attackers were already gone, retreating just far enough to keep the game alive. Every charge, every pivot was a theft of energy from the elephant's hand. The predators knew they only had to wait for the moment when exhaustion did the work. For them, from the shadows, the torn-eared leader watched, her body still, her breathing slow. She knew the other cows could not guard every angle, not indefinitely. Her plan was no longer to overwhelm, but to outlast, to press until instinct, not choice, pulled the elephants apart. The moonlight caught in her eyes as she waited. For the moment, the pregnant cow faltered again. The matriarch sensed the shift of patience in her opponent. She moved her bulk slightly forward, putting herself more fully between the cow and the advancing hyenas, but doing so left the rear exposed, and one of the younger predators crept into the widening gap. The pregnant cow tried to pivot, but the weight in her belly slowed her hand. A sharp snap of jaws came within a heartbeat of finding flesh. The sound of her low, urgent rumble cut the night air deeper and sharper than before. The other cows responded instantly, tightening their positions, their tusks angled toward the shadows. For a moment, the tension hung so tightly it felt as if the whole plain held its breath. Then, from somewhere beyond the grassland's edge, came a sound neither predator nor prey expected, a deep, distant vibration that traveled through the ground more than the air. It was not thunder, though it rolled like it. It was heavier, slower, and growing closer. The matriarch's ear twitched, her one eye narrowing not in fear, but in recognition. The hyenas froze mid-step, their eyes flicking toward the horizon. Even the torn-eared leader lowered her head slightly, as if the weight of that approaching presence had already reached her. The pregnant cow lifted her head, trunk extended high into the night, the scent of the wind changing on her skin. Whatever was coming was neither predator nor savior in the simple sense. It was something older, larger, and entirely its own force. As the vibrations drew nearer, every creature in the clearing, hunter and hunted alike, began to shift in ways no one could predict. From the black edge of the savannah, the vibrations deepened until they seemed to pulse inside the chest. A faint metallic scent rode the shifting air, not of blood, but of churned earth and distant rain, though no clouds marked the sky. The matriarch held her ground, but the pregnant cow shifted her weight uneasily, her ears half folded as if caught between curiosity and dread. The hyenas no longer advanced. Their leader, the torn female, had turned her head slightly, eyes fixed not on the elephants, but on the horizon, nostrils flaring with every new wave of scent. Then, from beyond the grass line, a lone bull elephant stepped into view. His tusks were long, one yellowed and worn to a blunt end, the other curved in a sharp crescent. His skin bore deep gouges, old battles written into the map of his body, and his walk was deliberate, almost heavy with thought. He was not of the matriarch's herd, his scent told that plainly. Yet his presence here was no accident. The matriarch's trunk lifted, and she let out a low, throaty rumble that trembled in the cool night. It was not a greeting. It was a measure, a question of intent. The bull slowed, his gaze passing over her, over the pregnant cow, and finally resting on the semicircle of hyenas. Something in his stillness unsettled the pack. They fanned wider, keeping the elephants within view, but creating distance between themselves and the newcomer. The bull's trunk swept low to the earth, stirring the dust in a slow arc. To the untrained eye, it was a simple gesture, but in the language of elephants, it was layered, a reminder of his size, a declaration that he would not be moved lightly. Still, he did not close the gap. He stood at the edge of the moonlight, the lines of his face unreadable. The matriarch's ear flicked in the faintest twitch, and the pregnant cow, sensing something in that exchange, shifted closer to her side. The calf inside her turned again, a restless press against her ribs. Her breathing quickened, not from the hyenas now, but from the uncertainty this bull carried with him. She could not know if he came as protector, opportunist, or something in between. The hyenas, meanwhile, seemed to sense an opening in the elephant's unease, to darted forward in quick, testing lunges toward the cow's hindquarters, forcing her to pivot and the matriarch to step back. Tightening their formation, the bull did not move to help. He only watched, his eyes catching a shard of moonlight as if reflecting a private calculation. There was a moment brief but sharp where the pregnant cow turned her head toward him. It was not an appeal, but a recognition. Here was another, of her kind, larger and stronger than herself, who could tip the balance in an instant. Yet his silence in that moment carried as much weight as action might have. In the world of elephants, intervention was never without cost. The tortured hyena leader broke the stalemate. She slinked forward, her shoulders low, and released a short guttural call. The rest of the pack shifted in response, tightening into a crescent once more. Whatever they had read in the bull's stillness had emboldened them. The matriarch took one deliberate step forward, her bulk blocking the view of the pregnant cow entirely. The ground between predator and prey was shrinking again. But now there was a third presence holding its place at the edge, neither advancing nor retreating. The bull's tail flicked once, swatting at an unseen insect. His gaze remained unmoving. Night seemed to contract around that triangle of tension. Even the wind had stilled, as though unwilling to carry the scent of what might happen next. The pregnant cow's trunk lowered, brushing the soil, tracing a half-circle near her front foot, a movement both grounding and restless. The hyenas shifted again, their paws stirring the dry earth in soft scrapes. Then, from somewhere far beyond the plain, a sound reached them, faint, irregular, and unlike the steady vibration that had brought the bull. It was higher, thinner, yet carried over the distance with surprising clarity. Every head turned toward it. The bull's ears flared slightly. The matriarch froze mid-breath. Even the torn-eared leader paused, one paw suspended above the ground. On it came again closer. Now, not the voice of an elephant, nor the cry of a predator. It was sharper, edged with urgency, and it carried a strange pull, as though it belonged to something out of place in the night. The bull shifted his weight at last, eyes narrowing toward the darkness beyond the grass. The matriarch's trunk lifted high, tasting the wind for an answer, but the sound faded into silence, leaving only the open plain, the moonlight, and the feeling that whatever approached would alter the balance. For everyone standing here, the sound came again closer, sharper, breaking through the stillness like splintering glass. This time it was followed by the rapid thud of something moving at speed. Too light to be an elephant, too steady to be a fleeing antelope. The matriarch's ears angled toward it, her single eye fixed on the horizon. The bull turned slightly, the great muscles in his shoulders tightening, his weight shifting in readiness. The hyenas hesitated, reading the change in posture from both giants. Out of the tall grass burst a young elephant calf, no more than 2 seasons old. Its small frame, streaked with dust and trembling from exertion, its cry, desperate, and rotor through the night. It did not belong to the matriarch's group. Its scent was unfamiliar, foreign even. The calf stumbled into the moonlight, heading straight toward the pregnant cow, as if drawn by the shape and scent of safety. The matriarch moved instantly to block it, fearing the distraction would break their defensive line. But the calf pressed against her leg with the blind desperation of the lost. Its breath came in shallow bursts, its tiny trunk groping at the air, seeking reassurance it did not find. The hyenas saw opportunity flare like a spark. The torn-eared leader gave a guttural call, and her pack surged forward, closing the gap with brutal precision. The matriarch swung her tusks wide, driving to back, but others darted low, toward the calf. The bull finally moved, charging at an angle that cut across the hyena's advance, his tusks slicing the dark with lethal intent. One predator yelped, retreating with a bleeding flank, but the cost of that movement was immediate. The pregnant cow was forced to turn, her flank exposed, to keep the calf from being trampled in the chaos. 2 hyenas seized the moment, lunging toward her rear legs. She lashed out with a kick that caught one across the jaw, sending it spinning into the dust butt. The strain sent a shudder through her body. Her breathing grew harsher, and the calf inside her shifted violently, as if sensing the turmoil. The plain became a whirl of movement, tusks flashing, bodies colliding, dust rising in choking clouds. Through it all, the young calf clung to the matriarch's side, its small body pressed so tightly against her leg that her stride grew uneven. The bull circled wide now, forcing the hyenas back toward the grass, but they regrouped with unnerving speed. Then the wind changed. It came in a sudden, heavy gust from the east, carrying with it the smell of rain. Not the soft, life-giving kind. This was the thick, metallic scent of a storm, driven hard over dry earth. Lightning flared far in the distance, illuminating the plain for a heartbeat. In that brief light, every creature froze, silhouettes caught. In raw brilliance, the thunder that followed was low and rolling, but beneath it came another sound, the deep, growing roar of water, where there should have been none. The matriarch lifted her head high, tasting the air, her ears wide. The bull stilled, listening. Even the hyenas faltered. Somewhere beyond sight, a wall of rain and flood was bearing down on the land, and it would reach them before the moonlight faded. The pregnant cow shifted uneasily, her sides heaving, while the calf huddled closer to the matriarch's leg. The first drops came in sudden, fat strikes against the earth, darkening the dust where they fell. Far across the plain, The deep roar of floodwater swelled until it seemed to merge with the thunder. Overhead, the matriarch made the choice first. With a sharp turn, she moved the group toward higher ground, not a sprint, but a relentless, purposeful march. The bull hesitated for a heartbeat, his gaze drifting over the hyenas, who now lingered at the edges, uncertain in the face of the coming storm. Then he fell in behind, his great frame sheltering the rear. The predators did not follow. Hunger meant little against the force of what approached. The pregnant cow labored forward, each step measured, her breath breaking in heavy bursts. The young calf stumbled at her side now, no longer clinging to the matriarch but drawn instead to her. As if sensing a quiet kinship, she adjusted her pace, slow enough to keep the calf within reach. Even as the water's voice grew louder, when they reached the ridge, the first rush swept across the plain below, a dark, rolling sheet that devoured grass and furrow alike. Lightning split the sky, turning the scene silver for an instant. The hyenas had vanished, their shadows erased by the rain. The bull stood at the ridge's edge, ears lifted into the wind, the stormlight painting his scars in pale relief. The matriarch moved close to the pregnant cow, pressing her shoulder gently against hers. The contact was brief, but it carried what a silent acknowledgement of survival, earned, not given. Below, the flood raged on, reshaping the land in ways none of them could control. The pregnant cow stood with the calf leaning into her side, the two of them framed against the restless sky around them. The rain softened into a steady hiss, washing the dust from their